Andrew, hello.
Good morning.
You have article up on your thoughts about Bill Belichick and the what conversations he's having with University of North Carolina. I'll ask you first. Do you think this is something that both sides are legitimately pursuing?
I do, for the first time since this story broke last Thursday. I think without any hard reporting myself, it's difficult to see them coming together in what appears to be a massive gap. Like, I think Bill looks at this and says, I'm Bill Belichick, right? If I'm going to come to North Carolina, I'm going to pick the next head coach. I'm going to have the whole staff. You're going to spend more money than you ever have. And North Carolina, up until recently, really lags in an area that you can't lag in modern college football, which is NIL. And so they're going to go from $4 million, which they spent in the roster last year, to $12 million thanks to revenue sharing. And to me, $12 million might be the cost of Bill Belichick alone.
I was just going to say that's got to be a problem. If you pay that much to Bill, you're not going to have anything left to bring in the athletes you need.
And there are different pools that you can pull from. But to me, there's just a lot of bridges to cross fundamentally. And this comes through in the ESPN reporting of like, okay, there's legitimate interest. But the issues that you have to figure out are salary, your resources for a staff, your resources to build a roster. Oh, and then his son, who reportedly Bill wants to be the next head coach in name whenever he's done. It's just a lot of ground to cover.
Do you think that this is something that Steve Belichick is on board with?
I'm sure.
So you've met him before. He's the kind of guy that would want his dad to go take a job and then know the only reason he got the head coaching job after him was because it was part of his dad's contract?
Well, I don't think he sees it entirely that way, because if you were to ask Steve, I would imagine, a prideful guy, super hardworking guy, and I think very simple in terms of his focuses and what he likes and what he wants from life, which has its benefits, is Bill's answer, I think, would be similar to Steve's in that, hey, I earned this by working my way up. You don't get to work for Bill Belichick unless you learn the defense. You work 18 hours a day. You get paid very little. And you could argue, okay, his foot was only in the door because his foot is his.
I don't have a problem with that, no.
Right.
Yeah.
But he says everything that happened after, I earned my way up. And he's earned the respect of players.
No, and I agree. And he's the defensive coordinator at Oregon or Washington. Who was a big program. And
they did very, very well last year, the defense.
Yeah, and they've recruited very well this offseason. And so my question with that would be, like, he's in a position where he could get a college head coaching job anyway. Like, if he continues to have success at Washington, he could get a. Do you see the history of the kid that's the coach at Arizona State? His first coaching job, he's 17. He's coached at Auburn. I mean, like the kid's like 31 years old or something. Like you can get jobs, having been the coordinator at Washington. I'm just wondering why he wouldn't want to do it on his own instead of having his dad put it in a contract that he needs the job. Because I do think that he could probably get one on his own.
Well, I think two things. Number one, he really enjoyed working with Bill. That's a fact. Like, you get a chance just to work with your dad as long as possible, knowing Bill certainly doesn't have probably 10 more years in him. I think he'd take that chance. Number two would be job security, right? I mean, in college sports, your livelihood, and this seems obvious, but I want it to sink in for a second, is built on the whims of performance of 17 to 20-year-olds. Like, famously, the most inconsistent people on earth. So if he goes, okay, even if things go bad at Washington the next year or two, I don't have to worry about that. I'm not going to be here. And then I'll go to North Carolina. And if things go poorly under my dad, I don't have to worry about losing my job then because I'm the next guy. So to be able to tell my wife and my kids, we're going to be here at least for 5, 6, 7 years, that's something not even the best head coaches in college football can tell their families.
Okay, but that's you just brought up one of the flaws, I think, in this whole plan, because everyone is just under the assumption that Belichick would go in there and have a successful program, and they don't have to worry about keeping it going because Steve's there to take over. What if he doesn't? What if he goes in there and has 2 or 3 wins and the Steve Belichick thing doesn't look that great because all he's going to do is continue what his dad started? There's got to be a way for North Carolina to get out of that if they don't want to continue with more of the same.
Yeah, you pay him to go away, right? Like any coach that gets fired, you're paid out and you're paid to leave.
Right. So
Jimbo Fisher might be the highest paid coach in college football right now because he's not at Texas A&M.
I guess it has as much to do with whether Steve likes this idea or not, as how much confidence he has in his dad that his dad's going to be able to go in there and be a good coach.
I'm sure he's been indoctrinated into having a lot of confidence. Does this mean the interest in UNC that Bill's pretty much resigns to the fact that his days of coaching the NFL are done.
That is my biggest takeaway. I think resigned is strong, but you cannot read this in any other way with Bill in the NFL as anything but a lack of confidence. And he's had 11 months to pitch himself again. Granted, you don't technically know what openings are going to happen come January, but you got 3 open right now. He's not going to the Jets. I don't think Chicago wants anything to do with
No.
him. New Orleans is the other. And then you're looking at Dallas, which maybe the timing of last night's loss in spectacular special teams fashion, just a complete meltdown, maybe gets Jerry to change his mind. And then you're looking at Jacksonville maybe. So he knows the players at the table, and they're saying, I don't really want to show you my card. So I think if this is not legitimate, it's a last-ditch effort to get the owners to pick up the phone and say, hey, just wait. We'll interview you, but that's all we can guarantee.
Okay, because if I look around the league, say there's 6 openings. I mean, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Mike Vrabel. I mean, there's a lot of guys, there, and that's 3 off the top of my head, and there's 1 free agent and 2 coaches from the same team. I mean, there's other guys there too. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I take before Bill Belichick. That's got to be the feeling around the NFL, right?
I would imagine. And I think Bill's actions say this. I think the calendar does him no favors, right? Like, this is the best college job available right now. I don't think after the playoff that's going to change where guys get fired because they didn't make – maybe Ryan Day at Ohio State, but that's a different story.
He's not getting the Ohio State job, but yeah, okay. Even if he was fired, Belichick wouldn't get that job. But yeah, go ahead.
Right. And so he's saying, do I just want to commit to coaching football because that's what I love most on this earth, or do I want to hold out for something that's probably a low probability chance, even if he was the number 1 candidate? Like, you still have to go in there, convince a whole room. Couldn't do it in Atlanta last year.
Yeah.
I'm your guy. Hire me now. Or do I just take something that's available? And I think what he's trying to do, especially on McAfee yesterday, like, everyone's very impressed that Bill was prepared and diligent and detailed. Like, that's the man. I don't think we forgot who Bill Belichick was.
Was McAfee standing or sitting on his feet?
I think he was sitting on his lap. I think that's how those interviews go.
That's a good
Yeah,
line.
I know. The best coach of all time. No, McAfee, when he's not standing now, he lifts himself up and he sits on his legs.
No, I believe he was standing for this one.
Okay, I refuse to watch
That's
it.
maybe the greatest breakdown and explanation of anything football related ever in the history of football.
Hey, the guy's he's not for everyone. He's not everyone's cup of tea. He's not your mom's radio host. He sits on his legs and kisses everyone's ass. Go ahead.
But I think that interview was not about, Bill has mastered college football. Like, that gap, I think, is a leap everyone's crossed and taken that has been a little bit too far. What that interview was, though, I think Bill pressuring North Carolina to say, if I take over this program, and we need to come together on things like these are the first 3 things he said about an interview. What are our goals? How do we get there? And what are the resources available to make that happen? The resources point is huge. This is not a school swimming in booster money and talent. They have the 90th ranked recruiting class right now. You'd be like, the transfer portal. He'll just pill 3rd and 4th year players who want to come play for Bill Belichick. He might, but then those guys can leave in a year. Like, there's so much here. And I think he says, you're going to give me what I want because I deserve it. I think it's a hard case to argue against. But even then, to Hardy's point, it's no guarantee that he wins. It's a totally different sport.
Yeah, and I think, and good for him if he takes the job, because I don't think he's going to get a job in the NFL, and he's not going to get a job at a blue blood college program. And if he really likes coaching this much, then it's almost honorable. Then go take the North Carolina job. And if they're willing to, I think it's more if your son's willing to, be a contract stipulation, then I guess good for him. But I think that this is the best case scenario for Belichick. He goes in there, it's a relatively low pressure affair. If they win 7-8 games, he's a hero. If they win 5 games, it's not a disaster.
It's just another year.
Yeah,
in North
exactly.
Carolina.
Right. Like, they're in a crappy conference. Like, everything's fine. Go ahead.
You were talking about coordinators and other coaches that could fill openings. The Houston offensive coordinator, Slowick, has been in the coaching cycle.
Yep.
The Buffalo offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, he's been in there too. So that's 5 right there. And I'm sure that there are some more that are involved.
I mean, I've read
Johnson.
a million names.
But, those guys have been interviewed for jobs. I mean, these guys could look at what Josh Allen is doing. A guy like Brady could get a job real quick this time around.
Right. And that's who you'd want. You don't want a 73-year-old man that was not good. It was not good his last 4 years and is terrible with personnel.
But if you're Dallas, like, talent's not your problem. It's dysfunction. It's coaching. Like, if I'm him, and I'll say this categorically, like the title of the column today, that I have in the Herald is let's hope Bill Belichick can do better than North Carolina, which is as much a reflection on North Carolina as the fact that I think the NFL is more interesting with Bill Belichick in it. And yeah, he was 29-39. I thought he deserved to get fired. But him in Dallas is a perfect hand-in-glove fit, in my opinion. Like, get him in there. It's only 3 to 4 years. Jerry's older than him anyway. Go win now.
Prescott loves McCarthy. He's got to deal with Prescott. I like to see him deal with Prescott and CeeDee Lamb without being able to put 6 rings that he just won on the table. Coming in, being a loser off the street, and come into that room, be old Bill Belichick, and try to get that team with Micah Parsons and all those guys to buy in. First of all, I think that Dallas is overrated with their talent. And you know, they're in a situation they don't have a quarterback right now. I just would. I mean,
what do you mean?
Prescott's hurt. Like
he's under contract. He'll be ready.
I know, but what I'm saying is they don't have a quarterback right now. Like I don't know how this is McCarthy's fault. That it's necessarily dysfunctional. I think if Prescott didn't get hurt, the Cowboys might make the playoffs. So I don't know. Again, if I'm any team, I don't know if I want to put a 73-year-old in there that's lost. That and has never won without a certain quarterback.
Making the playoffs isn't the problem, though. They've only won the one playoff game under McCarthy, despite having the regular season record. And when you see meltdowns in the postseason and you see meltdowns in special teams, I know it's a boneheaded play, and it'd be a lot easier just to put it on that one guy in that moment. But it's the same stuff that we got on Belichick and his staff for in the last few years. It's coaching. It's an overall coaching philosophy or a coaching situation or mentality going on, their culture that isn't getting through. And I don't know that it's completely McCarthy's fault because of the reasons you just mentioned, Fred, with not having Prescott in there. But at some point, you got to say, okay, it's not working. It's not working with McCarthy.
Okay, so would you bring in Belichick, who's never won without Brady and is 73 years old, or would you bring in one of these other candidates? Would you look around the league and see what's happening with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota?
Would I, if I were
probably the best, is going to win Coach of the Year? Go ahead.
Okay, if I were Jerry Jones, no.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones, I don't think is going to bring in Bill Belichick to be his head coach.
No, that seems. I just don't see a scenario why you would want him.
I don't know.
To the point about the talent,
I'd hire Vrabel. I just give Vrabel a ton of money. He's younger and seems more together. Go ahead.
To the point about talent, CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons are both better than any player Belichick had over the last 3-4 years in New England. And you would go, okay, well, whose fault is that? Bill Belichick. That's absolutely right. Coaching, development, drafting. But the Cowboys do a damn good job of getting players in the building. It's just what happens next. That's the problem. So I think he would have a higher floor than he had here in New England. There aren't warts or issues they had to have to work through. Like he can't do the same stuff that got him down to 8-9 and then 4-13 and out of the building. And I think Mike Vrabel is the best coaching candidate available. But I just think for what Dallas wants, where they're at, given their roster talent, their history, and their issues right now, Bill Belichick is the perfect.
Jerry hasn't always picked
think
the
so.
best guys. I mean, Jerry's handpicked guys have not necessarily been awesome.
Why would CeeDee Lamb and Prescott aren't old? Why is it a 3-year window? I'd want a 10-year window. Why would I only want a guy for 3 years? And that's not guaranteed.
Let me run this by you. Steve Belichick, future Cowboys coach.
That's excellent, especially when I'm like a real hard-on owner that wants to control everything.
It's a family business, though. His son is the COO, Steven, I think.
And cleans his glasses. Cleans his glasses from the box. Listen, I wouldn't give Belichick a job. I think he knows he's not getting a job, and I think good for him and good for UNC. If I was UNC, I'd hire Belichick. In 10 seconds, I'd hire him.
It's just
I would.
And
I would just to get some eyes on the program. Maybe get a little juice.
It's so funny. Fox had Edelman, Gronk, and Brady all on the panel together yesterday, and they asked all three of them. So, what do you think about Bill to North Carolina? And all three of them couldn't believe that this was actually going to happen. All three of them were incredulous that Bill would go to North Carolina and actually try to coach a college program. It was unanimous across the board without hesitation.
I think he has a lot more of a chance of succeeding at North Carolina in terms of what is expected than he does in the NFL. I think that he could go to North Carolina and win 7 games and be bowl eligible. I absolutely do. I think there's no question about it. He can outcoach Bill Belichick in the college level in the ACC, we could just based on he's a good coach. Like,
of course,
he'll win 4 games just by being the superior coach.
The
in the
problem
ACC.
has nothing to do with the on-field stuff. The problem for him, has always been the off-field nonsense he has to deal with. The 17-year-old that wants more money that's failing math.
But that's like not well. That's all at the table. They're professional athletes now. The academic part's out the window. They're NIL money. They're treated like professional athletes.
A 17-year-old walks in and says, "Bill, I want more money."
Well, that's not
and
Bill's.
Bill needs this kid to play whatever, safety or cornerback.
And that's why they have an NIL budget and the money to be allocated towards kids. I mean, it's the same. It's professional sports. If anything, Bill Belichick knows how to do that. That's what he knows how to do.
Here's the problem, though, just quickly. Like, the flow of talent in the NFL is the teams pick the players, except for in free agency, and even then, you kind of offer the most money. That's how it goes. The kids, when they're high school recruits, the kids, when they're transfer portal, they pick where they want to go. And you have to recruit not just at the high school level or in the portal, but year-round in your own building. Because these players, Georgia Tech, best season in a decade, almost beat Georgia, upset Miami, upset Florida State. Their number one receiver, 1,000-yard guy, just entered the portal yesterday because he could. Georgia Tech is an analogous program in my mind to North Carolina, who's going to have a lot of the similar
Georgia
problems.
Tech's better.
Yeah.
But they've won a national
So
championship.
he's got to recruit. Like, this jump from, it's professional sports all of a sudden.
You got to play nice with the media. You got to promote your program, stuff that Bill loathes.
He doesn't have to play nice with the media. That's absolutely not true. And secondly, he doesn't have to go out and actively recruit. That's not what head coaches do. Head coaches recruit probably about 5 kids. And then I understand what you're saying, keeping kids in the building.
Well, in the last year, and even then, you got to hire the right people to recruit.
Right. And you know what I do? I made you, kid. Steve, get out there and recruit all these kids for me.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.